गृह गाड़ी ऋण उपरे कमी पारे ईएमआई रेपो रेट 50 बेसिस पॉइंट कमाई पारे रिजर्व बैंक नुआ आर्थिक वर्षर प्रथम मुद्रानीति समीक्षा बैठक पर सुध हार घोषणा करिबो आरबीआई। सेंट्रल बैंक जो सुध हार रे वाणिज्यिक बैंक को ऋण देइथाए ताकू रेपो रेट कहा जाए। रिजर्व बैंक फेब्रुआरी मासरे प्रथम करी सुध हार रे ह्रास घटाइथिला 50 बेसिस पॉइंट कमिथिला रेपो रेट। तेणु रेपो हार रे 25 बेसिस पॉइंट ह्रास घटी 6% को ह्रास करा जाय पारे। रिपोर्ट अनुसार अमेरिका द्वारा लागू होइथिबा शुल्क सृष्टि होइथिबा विश्व अर्थनैतिक अनिश्चितता मध्य अभिवृद्धि को समर्थन करबा पई एमएसपी पुणी थरे रेपो हार ह्रास करि पारे। एने आजिर बैठक पर घोषणा करिवे आरबीआई गवर्नर संजय मालहोत्रा।
After a detailed assessment of the evolving macroeconomic and financial conditions and outlook, the MPC voted unanimously to reduce the policy repo rate by 25 basis points to 6% with immediate effect. I repeat, the MPC voted unanimously to reduce the policy repo rate by 25 basis points to 6% with immediate effect. Consequently, the standing deposit facility, the SDF rate under the liquidity adjustment facility shall stand adjusted to 5.75%, and the marginal standing facility rate or the MSF rate and the bank rate shall stand adjusted to 6.25%. I shall now briefly set out the rationale for the decisions of the Monetary Policy Committee. The Monetary Policy Committee noted that the inflation is currently below the target. It is supported by a sharp fall in food inflation. Moreover, there is a decisive improvement in the inflation outlook. As per projections, there is now a greater confidence of a durable alignment of headline inflation with the target of 4% over a 12-month horizon. On the other hand, impeded by a challenging global environment, growth is still on a recovery path after an underwhelming performance in the first half of 24-25, which is the last fiscal. In such challenging global economic conditions, the benign inflation outlook and the moderate growth demand that the MPC continues to support growth. Accordingly, the MPC unanimously voted to reduce the policy repo rate by 25 basis points to 6%. Moreover, it also decided to change the stance from neutral to accommodative. It also noted that the rapidly evolving situation requires continuous monitoring and assessment of the economic outlook. Let me now dwell a little on the monetary policy stance. This has been a subject of interest for some commentators and market participants. There have been questions as to whether it means a change on the policy rate or whether it signifies our stance on the interest rate or whether it relates to liquidity conditions. From a cross-country perspective, monetary policy stance is typically characterized as accommodative, neutral, or tightening. While an accommodative stance entails easy monetary policy that is geared towards stimulating the economy through softer interest rates, tightening refers to contractionary monetary policy, whereby interest rates are hiked to restrain spending and curb economic activity, all with the objective of reining in inflation. A neutral stance is typically associated with a state of economy which neither calls for stimulating economic activity nor calls for controlling inflation by curtailing demand. Therefore, it provides the flexibility to the central bank and the MPC to move in either direction on the basis of the evolving economic conditions. In our context, the stance of monetary policy signals the intended direction of the policy rates going forward. Accordingly, with respect to the policy rate, which is the mandate of the MPC, today's change in stance from neutral to accommodative means that going forward, absent any shocks, the MPC is considering only two options, that is status quo or a rate cut. Let me also clarify that the stance should not be directly associated with liquidity conditions. While liquidity management is important for monetary policy, including decisions related to policy rate, it is an operating tool with the RBI for various purposes, including monetary policy transmission. Monetary policy decisions to change policy rates do, however, have implications for liquidity management, being the operational tool to carry out the policy changes. To summarize, our stance provides policy rate guidance without any direct guidance on liquidity management. I will, of course, be discussing later our approach to management of liquidity. Before now I share our outlook and assessment of the growth and inflation, I think a few words on the implication of the recent global trade and related policy uncertainties are in order. Let me first highlight the possible implications for growth. First and foremost, uncertainty in itself dampens growth by affecting investment and spending decisions both of businesses and households. Second, the dent on global growth due to trade frictions will also impede domestic growth. Third, higher tariffs shall have a negative impact on net exports. There are, however, I may say, several known unknowns. The impact of relative tariffs, our relative tariffs vis-a-vis some of the other countries are quite low. Then there is the unknown of the elasticities of our export and import demand, and the policy measures adopted by us. You are all aware that India is very vigorously and proactively engaging with the US administration on the foreign trade agreement. These are just to name a few. These make the quantification of the adverse impact on growth difficult. The risks to inflation, on the other hand, are two-sided. On the upside, uncertainties may lead to a possible currency pressure and therefore imported inflation. On the downside, slowdown in global growth could entail further softening in commodity and crude oil prices, putting downward pressure on inflation. Overall, while global trade and policy uncertainties shall impede growth, its impact on domestic inflation, while requiring us to be vigilant, is not expected to be of high concern.